This video is meant to be an introduction to some geography ideas and terms that we will use throughout the school year. Through today's lesson, you will see the objectives are to review and identify some basic terms, as well as analyze some current trends of how geographic elements affect populations and living situations. To begin, I'd like you to think about this question: how does the geography of a region affect the life of its people? If we were to discuss this, I'm sure there would be a number of things listed, and I want you to have those thoughts kind of in your mind as we go through this. There will be a lot of terms that we go through. Some of these will be ones that you will have a homework assignment over. Many of them it will be great if you could list them in your OneNote section for geography so that we can keep track of those and refer to them at a later time. To start with, these are our three first terms. Hopefully these are terms that are not new to you, but ones that are review. The first one is the equator. Obviously 0 degrees latitude. The prime meridian is kind of the opposite of the equator at 0 degrees longitude and runs through England. The international date line is on the other side of the world from the prime meridian at 180 degrees longitude and is used to determine when a new day begins. Along the international date line is the first place where they celebrate a new year, first place where a new day begins as well. Continuing with a little more about longitude and latitude, these are two terms that by now, by 7th grade, you have no doubt heard time and time again. We want to be sure that they are really clear in your mind this year. We won't go over them or be tested over them, but it will be expected that you know them as we discuss some other things. First of all, the equator and the prime meridian are the starting points for both these sets of lines. Latitude lines are known as parallels, and they run north and south of the equator. And longitude lines are known as meridians. They run east and west of the prime meridian. If you ever have any confusion over that, I had a teacher one time that made it really simple. They told me that latitude lines are flat, and lat is flat, and so that's kind of an easy way to keep those straight in your mind. Well, we'll go over just a few more terms, and I know there are quite a few with this, but we'll work through and use some of these. The expectation is not that you memorize all these terms after we go through this first PowerPoint. But we want you to at least be a little bit familiar with them so that if we refer to them throughout the year, you'll have a little bit of an idea of what those terms are about. Some of these are more familiar to you already, potentially. The first one, GPS, we know all about now. Comes standard on just about every phone. Stands for Global Positioning System. The next one, GIS, is the acronym for Geographic Information System. It's kind of a big data warehouse where all sorts of geographic information is used and analyzed and put together. The next four terms have to do with different types of climates. And we want you to understand these, and as we go to sort of different parts of the world and study things in Africa or study things in Asia or study things in the Middle East, we'll look at not only what type of climate it is, but more importantly, what effect that climate has for that population. The first is a desert climate. Obviously that is extremely dry. It's typically very difficult for most plants or animals to survive there. The biggest desert we will be studying this year is the Sahara Desert, and we'll see a lot about how that affects the life of people in that part of Africa. Tropical climate is the next one. It's a climate that is very humid, very warm, typically quite a bit of rainfall, a lot of beautiful plants and trees and that kind of thing growing in a tropical climate. Semi-arid is the next type of climate. It's a dry climate, not as dry as a desert, but still fairly dry. It's a climate that can be home to some scrubby vegetation. Those types of things can survive in a semi-arid climate. Subtropical is the last one, and if there are, it's a climate where there are usually long, hot summers and milder winters. The final terms, one of them is hemisphere, and hemisphere is a term that we will refer to at different times. You may be asked to identify a certain location in the Eastern Hemisphere or in the Northern Hemisphere. And so you need to know what a hemisphere is so that we can locate whatever is in that hemisphere. It simply means half of the Earth. The prefix there, hemi, always means half. We'll study mostly the Eastern Hemisphere this year. Cardinal directions is the last one, and there are 4 of them: north, south, east, and west. So again, just some basic terms that we'll refer to quite often during the year as we study different parts of the globe. This next slide shows just a couple examples, or a few examples of the different hemispheres. You will see the northern hemisphere highlighted here, the southern hemisphere highlighted over here, and kind of what the globe looks like from that perspective. Same thing down below with the western and eastern. As you can see, as we said, when we look at the eastern hemisphere, you see Africa, you see Asia, and you see Australia, the primary areas that we will study this year. This next slide is a slide that shows some statistics about birth and death rates. It is slightly dated. 2002 is when this information is from, so about 10 years ago. But you can see several different countries mentioned here, and the number of births they have versus the number of deaths that they have. These numbers greatly affect the population of a certain region. The United States is fairly balanced, although you can see there are definitely more births than deaths, and so our population is growing. A population like that of Italy or Russia is kind of going in the other direction, and you can see a country like Yemen has a population that is just skyrocketing, growing extremely quickly. This next slide shows how the population of the entire world is growing, and again you can see it is growing extremely quickly, especially within the last 100 years. We went over this early in the year with our If the World Were a Village discussion, but some people estimate that in another 100 years, by the year 2100, the world could potentially max out and have just have enough people that there is just no more space and no more resources, and so we are quickly reaching this point. An example of this is the country of India, and this next slide shows a fairly typical street in India, and you could see the obvious things, that it is just jam-packed with people and cars and all kinds of things going on. Some of the things that you can't tell in the picture but could imagine are not just the things that you see, but also what it would feel like to be so cramped. Things like what it would smell like. It's not a great smell in that part of India. This final slide is a link to a video from Thailand. And Thailand is also a place where the population is growing extremely quickly. And so if we go to this video, which may or may not be easy. There's more than one way to do it. We will highlight. And this video is linked in your My Big Campus, as well as this PowerPoint. So you can see through this video just another indication of how space is so limited and population grows and affects different regions of the world. The last question on your Kim homework is to describe what this video is showing. So be sure and answer that question, and feel free to use the terms and definitions from this video as you do your Kim homework as well.